I am Olivia Clementine, and this is Love and Liberation. Today, our guest is Rinzin Phunjok Lama. Rinzin is an internationally acclaimed wildlife biologist and conservationist from Nepal. A native of Nimba community in Humla district of Nepal, Rinzin comes from one of the world's wildest and most isolated places. He is the first Nepalese to receive the Rolex Award for Enterprise for his work on community-based biodiversity conservation. He has also been awarded the Times Next Generation Leader in 2022 and the World Wildlife Federation Nepal Conservation Award in 2020. Delighted to have you here in your financial office.
I'm glad to came here.
In Kathmandu, next time Humla, hopefully.
Hopefully. We'll be able to see you in Humla.
Yeah, I would love that. I thought we could start with Humla. Since you grew up there, and it's such a remote region, what was it like growing up?
I basically have 2-3 impressions. One first thing is mostly about fun, because we have a government school. You have to walk 30-40 minutes. And it's mostly fun, so the study was not really a priority when as a kid, I think we love to play with friends. So lots of fun. And the other very visible impression I have is the snowfall, lots of snowfall. So the entire snow, entire winter used to be snow, and then we could literally go to all the houses just walking over the snow. Because we don't have a very joint houses, the houses are a little bit separated. And in the winter, that is the time when all the houses are connected because of the snow. So lots of snow. And other impression I have was, that time the Civil War was out there, and then we used to hear about. So few things. I think childhood memory was fun with lots of festivals.
When it's snowing, it's harder to get food, it's harder to get supplies. What were you living on in the seasons, like food-wise and clothing?
Clothing used to be, I think, important thing, we don't have much clothes. So for a whole year, I think we have 2-3 pairs only. And we have certain pairs separated for festival. We have lots of festivals, spring festival, winter festival, and those new clothes will be separated for the special occasion. Otherwise, at that time, I remember the tracksuit, it was just coming to the area. Otherwise, we have a handmade cloth. So we'll have a very bulky pant, and most of the things were handmade with woolen stock and the goat skin cloth. So livestock husbandry and agriculture used to be the major economic activities until early 2000. When I was still in the village, the mode of economy was still barter. People will barter things. And for the food, it's mostly local crops. We have a rice, but those are brought from the lowland areas. And then rice is a very special occasion food. So you don't eat rice every day, right? So it's only occasion, special occasion. And if we have a guest, there will be rice, and for festival there will be rice. Otherwise, it's mostly locally grown crops.
What kind of crops?
Barley, buckwheat, wheat. We have wheat, and I think buckwheat and wheat are the major. So barley is only for champa. It's not even a food; it's a snack. But for the food, it's mostly buckwheat bread, wheat bread locally.
So you're eating mainly wheat and sampa for snacks. And what were you having mainly for vegetables or animal?
So animal product we have meat, I think we have lots of meat actually at that time. There was, in our region at least, there used to be the major economic means, because those goat and sheep were used for caravans, bringing Tibetan salt and taking it down to the lowland areas and bartering with the grains and coming up. So there was some key activities. And the goat meat were always there. I think yak meat occasionally, we don't have much yak, but still we buy it from outside. And food, I think it's pretty much same, the Tibetan style food. Because in Humla we have 4 major Tibetan ethnic communities. We eat momos, tentu, and this kind of food. So chapati is quite common, tingmo, And for the vegetable, we didn't have much choice that time. So it's mostly spinach and wild vegetables like nettle is there, and that time greenhouse was just introduced by some project, and people were not used to that technology. So we don't have much access to vegetable. Or we have potato, turnip, some carrot, I guess, at that time. Otherwise, not much of the green vegetable.
And is it terraced farming up there?
We have a terrace because our land is very slopey, so it's mostly terrace farming. But we don't grow vegetable in our main farm, so it's home garden. Home garden where we grow vegetables, and we have some trees of apples.
Your ethnicity is mainly connected to Tibet. So if that's the case, then what language are you speaking, and what generally is your spiritual tradition?
Humla is very mix of the ethnicity, and I think we are not the majority one, we are minority. But within this there are 4 Tibetan ethnic communities, Tibetan speaking ethnic communities. So like Limi, Tuksilum, Hyojidum, Ninva, so that is what my tribe is. And then we have one called Sangba, and these are Buddhist, And we have most of the things similar to the West Tibet.
So you're the only academic environmental conservationist in Humla. And I'm just wondering, what is it that shifted your mind to do that and to decide to commit your life to Humla as well as conservation?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. Right now, I'm not the only one, but I'm one of the pioneering, very first generation of the conservationists. Yeah. And when I started studying forestry, so I come from the forestry background, and at that time, I didn't know that I will go into conservation sector because the forestry is still a conservation sector, but it's a different department. It deals with the forest. And I'm now more in the wildlife and biodiversity. Over the years, as I studied forestry, the passion grew out. I identified my interest slowly. One of the key reasons of studying forestry was, if you want to get a job, either you have to study agriculture or forestry, because this was a very dominant sector, and that is how I started forestry, because I was in contact with foresters from very young. And as I was in the forestry campus, I studied my ISc and then my BSc, and slowly I tried to identify what strength I can bring in this sector. So in that case, forestry, of course not, because we don't have that big, large forest in Humla. And wildlife could be one option. And within the wildlife, I think snow leopard could be the species that I can do better at community level.
I read a story about you that said that you had this one moment with a snow leopard, and something also connected to some of your spiritual understanding of the symbol of the snow leopard also really turned your gaze. Would you share that?
Yeah, I think in mountain communities, I think it's everywhere. Snow leopard is portrayed in different ways. In the winter, we have to bring all livestock down, and in the winter it's basically stall feeding for 2-3 months, because as I'm sure it used to be lots of snow and you cannot take your cattle out. So during the autumn time, during the harvesting, we will make a big hay of the grass for the winter fodder. And in the winter, when all the families members are together, from very young we used to hear snow leopard kill our horse or something like that. I think that was only the impression. And then when you hear about some animal killing a livestock, and then the impression was, okay, this should be something like a monster, like a very different impression, because it's not easy to kill, right? So that was kind of impression, and the word in our language is called sagu. I'm quite familiar with this term, but I don't know how it looks like. So it was back in 2006 or 7, after high school, I was up in the high pasture, and then I saw a snow leopard. Somebody called it snow leopard, and somebody called it sagu in local language, and then it just struck me.
Yeah. And what was it about seeing it and then being like, I want to take care of this species in particular?
When we were traveling, so we heard so many cases about conflict, and I was already in a position to understand some importance about wildlife and environment, and then that is how all this conservation journey started. Okay,
I want to get back to the snow leopard in a moment. Going back to your childhood and now, we describe some of the changes in the landscape because that leads to the work you're doing.
Lots of things are changing now. I see a big change, not just in terms of the landscape. In terms of landscape, of course, yes. As I told you, that I connect myself to those winter memory with the playing with the snow. Now we don't have that snow in the winter. In the winter it's more dry, and even if we have snow, it is so heavy that we get snow at once, which was supposed to be throughout the winter. Our farming pattern is pretty much dependent on the monsoon and winter snow. For example, wheat, we crop it and then there is a winter snow, so that make the soil moist. The snow itself used to serve as the water reservoir, and it melts slowly and it provides irrigation to the farm in a natural way. Now this is not the case. More lands are going barren, the productivity is going down, and slowly this is also impacting the cultural way of lifestyle. And the young generation doesn't want to do this because they don't see the output. Everybody needs money to continue the life. The other thing is, right now we have a mud plaster roof, so it's not metal roof. Now slowly, as the weather is becoming more erratic, less snowfall, more rainfall, the overall, the heritage itself is changing. Now we'll see metal roof. Then the traditional architect, slowly it's also changing the architect. We have festival for winter, we have festival for spring. And all these things are slowly changing. So not just in terms of environment, but also cultural environment is also changing slowly and gradually.
You were saying before the bartering system and what you're growing, are those things changing as well? Like, is there a bartering system anymore?
Only 2000. I remember myself. So if I'm short of the rice, I have a guest, and if we don't have a rice in our house, then like we'll just barter, we'll lend it. Now this is no more the culture. Now you have to buy it. So barter to buy. This is one shift already. Those days there was good respect, trust, the sense of collaboration or cohesion. Now lots of things are disintegrating slowly, and one of the reasons could be the modernization. And environmentally also lots of things are changing now.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this idea of community, where like you actually you have to depend on each other. It's healthy in so many ways, and I just wonder for you, because I think you are exemplary in your intention of really bringing community into your work. Rather than having people from outside Humla come in, you're very interested in supporting the community, supporting future young educators of conservation. And I'm wondering what you've seen that's helped people come together and want to preserve, and what you've done yourself to allow for that to happen.
For example, right now the cooking gas is just new in our area, but not in the village. In the city, in Simigor, people use cooking gas. Otherwise, life is so much dependent on natural resources, either for timber or fuel. We need fuel for everybody because that is the main source of cooking. And apart from that, you need grassland. And then let's say biodiversity or environment is dependent on their even income. People, they go out in the pasture, collect medicinal and aromatic plants, and that is one of the direct source of cash income. These are our capital. And if we don't protect it, they are limited. They are gonna go if we don't protect it. So the parent generation, grandparent generation, they were not exposed to market at that time. They protected this because they knew to use it regularly. Now as we are in the globalized market, is coming, and people travel, they see luxury, lots of things are coming together at once, and that is putting so much pressure on these resources. And we have to find a good way. When somebody is more in need of the money, then maybe the conservation may not be his priority or her priority, But we have to balance this somehow. And raising this need in some side of the community is very important. And we are working on that, We already see this. When I was studying in school in the winter, we'll go up 2 hours, and bring up one pile of fuel. Now there is no forest in the area that we used to go 22 or maybe 22 years ago. These are some of the visible changes that we could see.
Yeah.
If we don't have the resources, how are we gonna live there? And bringing these voices is also equally important. We change half of the society, maybe some not. If we just keep trying this for a long time, maybe we will be able to change lots of people.
I guess coming also back to your initiatives, so you're wearing a hat.
UKALI.
UKALI. Do you want to speak about the initiative?
After my undergrad, we did the first study in snow leopard in Humla. That was in July, August 2015. So we recorded the snow leopard for the first time. In the area where I saw snow leopard back in 2006, that was the start, formal start. We were doing some informal visit, but that was not enough. In terms of scientific expedition, that was the first time we were studying wildlife in our region. So we spent 1 month studying this. And then we were continuing in small scale, and we had a plan to do something at a large scale, but funding was always the issue. Even after the new structure, the local government, the rural municipality concept came in, we were requesting fund from them and doing a small scale work. After I received the Rolex Award in 2021, and then we started giving more concrete structure to the idea, to the work we were doing in Humla, and then the foundation was set, and that is how the UKALI came up, the Upper Karnali Landscape Initiative.
And why is biodiversity so much more sensitive in a place like Humla versus another region?
In the Upper Karnali Landscape area, which is around 6,000 square kilometer area, including my own district, Humla, is outside the network of protected area. So there is no protected area, means government bodies that is looking after conservation. We are only the area where we have lots of Tibetan plateau species. So if we look at the diversity, we are in much better position than other protected areas. And the other thing is, since this is not in the protected area, the human activities will be much higher. Either it's good or bad. That is why we started UKALI, and I think we are working to address all these threats in multiple aspects. We call it multi-pronged approach.
If the snow leopard declines, how does that impact everything else?
I think, not just in Humla, in the entire mountain ecosystem, snow leopard is the top predator. That means snow leopard is something that is balanced in the whole ecosystem. If there is no snow leopard, there could be something wrong, like the indicator. The other thing is, snow leopard is globally recognized species, one of the very charismatic wildcat, that helps bring funding. One thing is funding. The other thing is, snow often comes in conflict with herders. So this is directly connected to people. Globally, they are declining in such a way that if we don't take initiative now, they will be gone. The health of the ecosystem is linked to snow leopard, but in the spiritual world, snow leopard have lots of significance as a symbol. So in the highland, with the pastoral communities, there is a myth about the demigod, and that is, and snow leopard is the manifestation of that god. So this is, I think, more dominant in pastoral societies. When we misuse pasture, or when we do something bad, that is affecting the pasture health, and if we fail to please the pasture god, and then they manifest in the form of a snow leopard and trouble us.
Yeah, and so what's the current population right now?
So I'm just back from the National Workshop on snow leopard. We're estimating the population. In Humla, by the end of this year, we might be able to bring the population, like very robust population. But I was in the workshop for the regional workshop for the entire Western Nepal. We have 3 snow leopard complete landscape. The eastern landscape that goes from Langtang National Park all the way west to Kanchenjunga. We have the central landscape that's from Langtang to Folksundar National Park, the area between this, and we have western landscape that goes from Folksundar westward. So we are also in the western landscape. We are working on the climate snow leopard conservation action plan for the area. So we had a very nice discussion. We have some research going on in the area. Not just us, other research are also going on from the government side. And maybe we might be able to bring more reliable data soon. But it's exactly hard to say how many we have. Not easy.
What are you actively doing to increase biodiversity?
So in Humla, in UKALI region, not just Humla, it extends a bit further. We don't have a very solid baseline on what we have. I think that is the first question we are trying to address. So we are trying to build on the baseline data. We have lots of community level consultative workshops in a very community level, very small and micro scale, to bring out the people's knowledge on biodiversity and use, and trade and changes and all these things. So the key goal is so that we have the baseline on what we have and what it used to be 10 years back and now, and how we can proceed together in a very low level of investment. Because funding is not always guaranteed. So if we want to continue in long term, how can we mobilize our community institutions like community forests? So we are working on that level now.
So right now it's gathering information.
It's gathering information how we can move forward with our capacity. If we bring the export from outside, it's not feasible, it's not sustainable. So we have while documenting what we have, these 2 things are going on together now.
And in terms of the younger generation, you're also involving them. How does that look?
We are one of the youngest team in Humla. And in the beginning it's challenging because we have to train them. It takes time, but once they are trained, I think they can run faster than others. In the sense, not physical running, but in terms of the activities and implementation, I think the output can be much faster. The youth are the future. We have to trust them and we have to motivate them, we have to train them. The young legs are very important to carry on the legacy.
When we arrived here, you were saying that you've been traveling a ton.
This year.
Yeah, this year. And I'm wondering, what is your lifestyle like in terms of being in the field and you come to Kathmandu, or you're traveling elsewhere? What is that looking like?
It's been almost 1.5 years that I'm not traveling abroad, but most of my travel is between Humla and Kathmandu. We work with the Department of Forests, that is the central body, looking after the area outside the protected area. And apart from that, we also have lots of lab work going on now. Because of that, I have to come here frequently to do this, and we have timely presentation and coordination meetings and all these things. That is mostly in Kathmandu. And in the field, I miss lots of email actually. When I'm out in the field, I'm not in communication. So and then lots of things get messed up, and sometimes that is not possible from Singapore. In that case, again, I have to come down to Kathmandu. Coming down to Kathmandu itself is lots of trouble.
Yeah, and so when you're in the field, what does that look like? How many of you are there? Where are you sleeping? What are you eating? Things like that.
It depends. So in the field right now we have two kind of expedition. One is the organized expedition with all the mules, and when we speak about smaller and high altitude wildlife field work, it's mostly camping. We do camping. So when we do a lower elevation survey, lower than 4,000, and we have a well-organized setup. We have a mules, we take all our cooking gas and all these things. But it's a little bit time-consuming, And base camp is always at the base. I have to go up, come down. It takes lots of energy. Especially in the winter, we do a high-altitude expedition. That is very light expedition. We have a very thin tent that doesn't protect the rain, but it protects the wind. Very lightweight and light food. So we carry ourselves. And then these are small groups, 6, 4, 5, 6. And then we continue the high-altitude survey. And wherever it gets dark, we'll just settle down there. If there's a cave, we will sleep in the cave. Otherwise, if we have a space to set the tent, then we will set. And sometimes neither cave nor space to set the tent. In that case, we just sleep outside. In the villages, we sleep in homestay, and that is more warm, and you can have the food. Otherwise, we cook by ourselves, so we don't have separate people cooking. So it's the core team.
Mm-hmm. And how long are you out in the field at a time?
Last few years we are in the field a lot. Snow leopard field is very time consuming and very demanding. For example, like we go out a few months to set out the camera, and then again we have to spend a few months to take out the camera. It's a 2-season survey. Right now, because of the weather, we are on hold and we are continuing. It took us 3 months to set, I think, 50 plus camera. 3 months to set 50 plus camera. It's going to take us 1 to 2 months to take out this camera. And in new area, when we have to do the first time survey, then I go myself. Once we do the survey, it's easy. Like the field team goes and they follow the same track that we walked before. And the follow-up survey is only a follow-up survey.
What are your essential equipment for it? Like, I cannot go out in the field without this.
In field, like 2-3 things are very important. The boots. It has to be something strong enough to continue, because you cannot buy there, right? Or you cannot fix it yourself. And I think jacket is very important in cold. It has to be down or something that is warm. I think a few pair of socks and one backup pair of things, everything, socks or whatever, all the sunglasses, very important. Other thing we often miss is the fire, lighter. Nice sleeping bags are very important. Sleeping bag have to be good quality.
Okay. It sounds like rain protection is not a worry for you.
No, it depends on, because most of our seasons coincide with the non-draining season. One thing is there is no visibility, we cannot still pray. Mm-hmm. The second thing is it washes away the sign. Having said that, we have a raincoat as a backup.
What do you bring essentially for food then? You said like you have to keep the calories low. Yeah.
We carry expedition food, like the instant food, where because high up. Mm-hmm. So coffee, tea is something that we drink a lot, soup, we drink a lot, and we use the small cooking gas, that they use, the climber use, the small one. I think popcorn is something that we eat very regularly, and the mountain instant foods, we boil for 2-3 minutes, it's fine to eat.
So if you had an ideal vision for what would come about with UKALI and your work, what do you envision for that region? Like, what would be ideal 20 years from now? What would you like to see?
We have a community institutions like youth community forests, and they are working for this biodiversity conservation. I will say that at the same time they also have the livelihood enterprise. Because if we fail to integrate livelihood component and conservation, then I think things will not progress. So people have to have certain source of income to sustain it. Sustainability is the key thing. So we are trying to explore what could be the potential source of the enterprises, that the people can make money. Not for much profit, but conservation has to sustain it. At least the key group they are working has to sustain it. Livelihood diversification is very important. So we diversify, and that is in the spirit of the biodiversity conservation.
And do you have some ideas?
Honey is one of them, like the Highland honey. And then we're looking at the viability. How viable is this? People can make money now, but does it feasible for the next 10, 15, 20 years? Mm-hmm. Livestock based enterprises like yak, cheese, butter and all these things. We are also exploring that. Not now, we don't know yet. The medicinal plant is of the big business. I think we cannot control this. This will never come in our control. Incense making, tea or something like that. Nettle, a very small enterprise, but if we have more product, maybe it will still be a nice enterprise. Handicraft with the women, the building on the foundation for traditional handicraft and accessing it all. That is something viable. I think we can still bring people in the process. Livelihood enterprise is important, but the long-term sustainability and the continuity is the question now. So we are looking at that aspect very closely.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if somebody's listening and they want to, in their own area, encourage biodiversity or conservation, what do you think is a first step or first way to start to engage?
Learning about it and volunteering. Many people, they are interested, but when they get in the sector itself, then they don't find it interesting.
And for your project, how can people support?
In our project, I think we have a quite broad aspect to support. People can come as a volunteer. We have done few, like those who really want to explore. So we don't provide trekking experience. We provide exploration experience. They come and explore with us. So there is no organized trip or there is no boundary, right? So what we do, and that is not just for travel, we do the real work and people come and explore it in a real sense, right? So that is one way, the volunteer, and they help us in that particular expedition. The other way is helping us with our research, writing, and then some people can also do remotely working, looking at our program and advising how can we improve it, because I think people have good experiences, write blog, news features like that, reviewing reports and all these things.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for your work, and I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to share or say.
Thank you so much. It's so good to have you, and then to have this podcast in a very short time frame. I don't have very specific because right now we are just lost in our own startup. We are just starting, but UKALI is trying to address multi-pronged approach, livelihood, cultural conservation, leadership, and lots of things. In the most important way, this prioritize economic approach.